Hi everyone, welcome to another review. This one's going to be a little longer than usual, I think, because I'm going to be talking about an amplifier. And to talk about an amplifier, I need to pair it with and talk about every piece of audio gear that I have pretty much. So, let's get started. This is the RA Plus, which stands for Runabout Plus by Venture Electronics. Now this is a portable sized amplifier. This is basically made to be used with your digital audio player, even your cell phone, using a cable like this, which is also by VE. So let's just quickly talk about what you see when you pick this up. First of all, build wise, it's quite solid metal, and you have of course, the volume switch. You have the output in 3.5 millimeter, the input in 3.5 millimeter, and a gain switch in the middle. So on low, it's on low right now because I like to keep my, especially portable like earbuds and stuff on low gain, so you can have the expanded soundstage. On the back, you have a selector for DC power and battery. Because this does take batteries, generally a 9-volt battery will go in here. At the end of the video, I'll open this up and I'll show you how to insert one. But for now, let's just keep it close so I can talk about this. And of course, the DC in for the power adapter. So this little thing, right? This little thing, I've had it for 2 months now. And you may have noticed if you've been keeping up with my reviews that I keep mentioning it. I keep mentioning, okay, I have 3 amplifiers. I'm going to try this pair of headphones or this earbud on all my amplifiers, and I will tell you what I think. And I usually compare it to this, the liquid carbon, and the Shit Magni 2. Now this and the Shit Magni 2 are about the same price, like literally $1 difference. Except, by the way, just Lee told me recently, if you buy a Zen or an Asura 2 by Venture Electronics, you can get $30 off your Runabout Plus. So that will make it come up to about $68. So I think that's a pretty good deal, and I'll tell you why when I talk about this in conjunction to everything else that I have. So this packs quite a punch. The reason that I have this right now is because when I wanted to review the Zen 2 and I wanted something that I could pair with it, I paired it with my liquid carbon. I thought it sounded good. I paired it with the Magni. It sounded a bit, just a little louder, I guess. There wasn't much character to the sound. This has a slight tinge of warmth to it, not nearly as much as the liquid carbon, and not even nearly as much as the Asgard 2, which I used to have. But it has a bit of character to the sound. Now that character I found has made even headphones, which I don't need an amplifier to drive, sound more akin to my musical listening experience, the one that I prefer. So without further ado, let's talk about a pair of earbuds that do not need to be amped really. You can use them from your cell phone, but which I really like coming out of this. So this is a VE Monk, basically their cheapest offering and obviously their most popular because of the great amount of sound you can get for its really relatively low price. So I'm going to open this up brand new so I can just show it to you and talk about the pairing with the Runabout Plus. Now this is the Mouse Drop edition. This is the exclusive red Mouse Drop edition that's actually big. This is from the first drop. I received it about a few weeks ago. Now, this is on sale again on Mouse Drop today, I think for about another 5 days. So, definitely go check it out, I think. I really like this. It's the first time I'm actually looking at it in my own hands. So why do I want to talk about this with that when this doesn't really need to be amped really? 64 ohms, you can run it from your phone. Because it all depends on how it makes it sound. Now, the Monk Plus, which this is, compared to the original Monk, which is more mid-forward and warm, this has a more neutral sound. Slight bit of more of a bass boost, but just overall a really clean sound. Not bright. The Asura 2 is bright, and I'll talk about this later. But this can really benefit from the warmth of that. And by warmth, I mean not so much warmth, but more like the really slight tinge of warm character that provides. Really makes it sound like blazing on all fronts. Really nice. So that's been my little cameo by the Monk. I really like how they look. So Next, the reason I got this in the first place was the VE Zen. Now this guy, I have my review up from a few weeks ago. This is 320 ohms. You can't plug this into your cell phone and expect it to do it justice. What you need is an amplifier. And I'm glad to say that even 320 ohms, right? This does a great job with this. Like right now, let me just show you the volume knob on low gain, by the way. Where it is right now, about 8 o'clock, that's for the Asura, which is 150 ohms. For the Zen, I would probably say it goes up to here, and it's really loud. So this is a powerful amp, guys. Don't think that just because it has just because of the numbers, don't think you're gonna have to turn it up all the way here. You absolutely won't. In fact, I would be surprised if you had to go up this high for any pair of headphones. So yeah, down here, just keep it down here, and you get a nice, good, clean sound. So the Zen itself is a very warm pair of earbuds. Sounds like an open can to me, a bit like the AC600 in my opinion. So you have, when I plugged this into my Cavalli Liquid Carbon, I felt like it got a bit too warm, because warm plus warm, you know, that whole thing. When I plugged it into my Magni, it didn't seem very pleasing. Now the Magni provides a lot of power, really clean energy and power, but it doesn't have a certain character behind it. Sometimes it just, when you plug headphones or earbuds into it, it just doesn't seem like it wants to play ball. It just seems like it's a grudging kind of amp in some situations. That's what I mean. But this, I mean, obviously, I mean, if Adventure Electronics made this for stuff like this, obviously it's going to sound great, right? Because, you know, why else would they release this? Well, I'm glad to say it does sound great. And this is my ideal pairing for my Zen. Definitely. The slight tinge of warmth, the really, really powerful sound that comes out of this drives this extremely well. Now, moving on quickly, because I have a lot to talk about, is the Asura 2. Now, I haven't reviewed these yet, but it's coming in the future, near future, hopefully. So this is a 150 ohm pair of earbuds, also by Adventure Electronics, obviously. But this guy is a bright sound. Now think of the Monk Plus, right? You have a ton of detail. This has even more detail. But this doesn't have as much bass as the Monk Plus. This has a less neutral overall sound, but it has a lot more sparkle in the top range. So orchestral music, probably from all their earbuds that I've heard, in my opinion, if you want to hear those really shrill sounding strings and the air in the mix, this will provide that the best. It may not have the rumble of the drums and the timpani and all that, but the top end will sound really nice with this, because this has a lot of detail. This is like, if you plug this in after listening to the Monk, you will feel like everything has expanded, opened up a little bit more, but you will feel the slight loss of bass. So, you know, just based on your preferences, you guys choose. Of course, the Zen has the most bass, but the Zen doesn't. You can't do this with the Zen. You know, you can't cover it up even slightly. It needs to be bare. It needs to be naked when you're listening to it. So the Asura, with that, also slightly warms up, just slightly. The bass, maybe like a 5% like boost in like 5% more bass, which isn't, you know, that much, but it's something. But what really I like about this, it's not, I don't care about the bass so much when I'm listening to this, but what I really like about the pairing of that and this is that the warmth of that comes over quite a bit. So you still have those really detailed highs, but you'll have a bit of warmth in there too. Now, I hope you can sense the pattern right now when I'm talking about warmth, right? You're probably thinking, oh, I'm just going to watch this guy's review, and he's just going to keep talking about, oh, this makes it warmer, this makes it warmer, it just makes them all warmer, right? Well, now when we're talking about warmth, imagine something like this. This is the HD800, if you didn't know already. A very highly regarded pair of headphones. A very bright pair of headphones, in my opinion, compared to anything that I've owned before. So, you would think that, I mean, people spend, like, they buy this basically, and they travel the world looking for an amplifier that pairs really well and suits their needs and molds the sound in the form that they want it to sound. And they do mods and stuff too. You know, this is like, because this has a very, very infamous peak in the sound, which can get really sibilant at times. So why am I even showing you a full-size dynamic cam with the RunAbout Plus? Because surprisingly to me, I mean, I did not disregard this. I did not disregard the sound and power that this provides. But, you know, just traditionally speaking, when you think about a full-size pair of headphones paired with like a portable amplifier, which by numbers doesn't provide that much power, you think, okay, it's just gonna do all right? It's not gonna like be amazing. But this was actually a really good pairing. I was very surprised. I found this to be a far better pairing than my Magni 2 and this, definitely. With the liquid carbon through the standard input, not balanced. I don't have a balanced cable for this yet. For the standard input of the liquid carbon and the HD800, I felt there was slightly more bass, but this did about, let's say, 85% of the job that the liquid carbon could do with this. Now, I'm not saying this is the best pairing in the world with this. I mean, people go and spend like thousands of dollars on headphone amplifiers just for the HD800 to suit their taste. Not saying that at all, but what I am saying is that this did an admirable job, which really excited me, because I thought when I get a nice digital audio player with a nice line out, I can just take this around with me. I can go visit grandma without my whole system with me, and I can bring this along, because this can be driven by this quite well for what it does. And you're not going to be listening to bassy music on this anyway, so it doesn't really matter so much about, you know, the bass not being fully like boosted or there even, but it does give it a little bit of warmth. Once again, let's not make it into a little bit of a meme, guys. Let's talk about how it pairs with, let's see what's next. Ah, yes. My Meze 99 Classics. Now these, again, do not need to be amped. They don't. This is, I think, 32 ohms. You can plug it into your cell phone, you're ready to go. But there's room to grow. The Magni made it just louder. Once again, Magni and this, not the greatest pairing. The liquid carbon, I could not plug this into the liquid carbon because the liquid carbon does have the problem, the first run edition that I have, with a power hum issue with low impedance headphones and earbuds. So I could hear that, so you know, I can't pair it with that basically. But this provides a lot of nice, clean, slight warmth, character, all that. Made this sound really dynamic, really, really good. When I talked about it in my review, in my written review, I found this was a great pairing for these two were just like a pair, match made in heaven. So if I were to use this out in public, right, which is a good idea because of the isolation, I would definitely pair it with a DAP and this. I wouldn't just listen to it on my own unless I was in a hurry and I didn't have time to set up anything or pick up my setup, because this and this go together like bread and butter, and I love buttered toast. So what's up next? Let's talk about something that doesn't do so well. Now, this surprised me. Well, actually, no, it didn't really surprise me, but this is the K7XX by AKG and Monstrop, right? So, on paper, not that much to drive, right? Just low ohms comparatively. I think it's a 62 ohms, so like 2 fewer ohm than the Monk Plus. But it has a lot of resistance. You need to be able to drive these things. They're not going to be driven just based on that one number of 62 ohms. You need to have a good amplifier for this. And not just good, you need something that will pump enough power into this. And I would probably say this responds well to raw wattage. More than anything I've showed you today, raw wattage will probably make this work the best. And since this doesn't have that much raw wattage, it wasn't a really great pairing. It sounded just a little, like maybe 20% better than if I plugged this into my cell phone, which isn't that great in my opinion. What you need is, because with this what happens is if it's not well amped, the low end becomes quieter and it becomes distorted sounding. So the whole, and the mids too, like the lower mids get quite distorted sounding. So you'll have the whole package of listening to this will just become a flimsy little shadow of an experience that you would have if you had it properly amped. So I can't recommend the RA Plus with that. Yeah, for this you'll need something a bit stronger than this in terms of raw power. Another pairing which is not, which is okay. I would give it maybe 6 out of 10. Is this now? If you can't recognize what this is, it's a Hi-Fi Man HE500, right? But I modified it a bit. I'm using ZMF lambskin pads. Some people put alpha pads on theirs, but I like these because they're a little bit thicker. And I have a pilot pad also by ZMF on the top for extra comfort. And these are a very heavy pair of headphones, so I've made these little changes to make them a bit more comfortable. Now this is a planar magnetic. Now planar magnetics need power, guys. Like, it's very rare that you'll come across a planar magnetic pair of headphones that says you don't need to power these. Really, you can just use them from your cell phone. I believe the Odyssey Sign is one of them. I haven't heard them yet, so I can't tell. But this does need some good amount of power. This provides an okay amount of power for that, but it won't sound ideal. My best pairing for this is through the balanced output of my liquid carbon. This will probably take it about 6 out of 10 in terms of how it can drive this. But in my opinion, you shouldn't be really trying to drive planar magnetics from this and that. And even that, it depends. The Odyssey Sign would probably sound very nice from this. There's another pair of planar magnetic headphones that do sound okay, pretty nice with this, but this, not so much. But the thing is, it does a serviceable job. Something of this price, especially if you get the discount, and something of this form factor doing a serviceable job is, I would say, a compliment to the RunAbout Plus. So finally we come to the ZMF Omni, which is a modified Fostex T50RP Mark II. Also planar magnetic. Now, if we're talking about pairing a planar magnetic headphone, I just talked about how the HE500 makes it a little problematic, not the best in terms of pairing, but it's still pretty good. This is actually better in that regard. What you have over here is you have a 50 ohm pair of headphones, which when plugged into this, what happens is these are basically the mids on these are great, right? So the mids on this coupled with, basically, I prefer this. This is actually the one time the Magni wins out a bit, because the Magni provides a lot of clean power to this. But while that does help the low end, especially on this one, because this is actually the Cocobolo one, which has different sound signature than the Cherry one. I have that in another review video. So what happens is, the low end on this is more than on the Cherry, so the magnitude helps that quite a bit. But what this does is, this is better for the Cherry, because the Cherry is more laid back, the transients are not as fast, you have more of a decay in there, so more of a lower mid focus sound, that kind of thing, really warm sound. What this does is, the RunAbout Plus, it does something really cool with the mids where it sounds really clean, but at the same time it sounds a little bit warmer than it usually does. So it's a very inviting, very, very nice sound, but not as warm, not nearly as warm as the liquid carbon. But on the Cocobolo version, it does the same thing. It helps the mids quite a bit, in my opinion, but the bass misses out on some of the impact, because these are bassier than the Cherry versions, right? A harder wood, more of a low end sound, and overall it's a very faster transients, and the overall sound is a bit more lean, a bit more clean in the top range. There's not much mid bass going on. So since there's less, in some ways there's less, but in some ways there's more bass on this, less mid, more sub, this would have helped the mid bass a lot more than the sub bass, and helped the mids a lot more in general. So mids, a lot of help according to with this. So what would I rate this pairing? I would probably call it about a 7 out of 10, which again is very good for a portable pair of portable headphone amplifier, in my opinion. But with the Cherry, I would give it a full 8 out of 10. That is how good it sounded. So now we finally come to the last part, which is going to be the battery. So let me just quickly, so these are thumb screws, right? Hopefully I don't knock them off the table. That one looks suspicious. Alright. So it opens up like this. And there you have a 9-volt battery. Just a standard, this is a standard Amazon Basics battery. I bought like an 8-pack of them. Completely 9 volts, non-rechargeable. Now, paired with this non-rechargeable battery, like another one, I had this running for like 25 to 26 hours, which is very impressive. But I do believe that a non-rechargeable battery has more charge in it than a rechargeable battery could have. So keep that in mind. I can't really tell you what the lasting time will be on this. If there's information on that on the site, base your purchase off of that. But otherwise, I can just vouch for the fact that a regular 9-volt battery lasted over a day. Now, Lee recommends you don't even use a 9-volt battery, and if you can not find a 9.6 volt battery, just use a 9V. 9V just sounds fine. It works fine. But a 9.6 volt battery, you can actually pick that up on veclan.com. They give you a battery pack, and I do believe maybe even a charger, but don't quote me on that. So if you're going to go down the path where you want this to be, because I basically use the DC most of the time, so, but I will definitely be looking into 9.6 volt batteries, rechargeable ones too, because that just sounds like it'll last longer, for instance, and this is basically designed for that. So just, designer's choice. I believe KK designed this, of course. So yeah, let's just do what they say in that regard and find ourselves 9.6 volt batteries. Otherwise, it's just fine. So overall, at the end of this long review, what do I think about the RunAbout Plus? I think this is a stellar purchase because of the price, and you have two prices going on here. If you already have a Zen or an Asura, you're getting $30 off. Now, that makes it, like I said, $68, which is absurdly good money for what, absurdly low amount of money for what you're getting here. I think this rivals the Magni 2 in some ways. Not in terms of pure wattage, but in terms of how it just does so well paired with so many headphones, that even ones that are considered portable, like the Meze. It has a certain sound characteristic which I find extremely nice. I was very impressed when I first plugged this in, and I tried it with everything that I have. And of course, there are some cases where I would recommend you do not use like maybe planar magnetics on this and stuff like that. But in general, it just does so well. Now, one thing which probably one of my favorite pairings of this is going to make you laugh. Maybe you'll call me a filthy casual for saying this, but if I've used my Galaxy S6, which I'm using to record this right now, so I can't demo it for you, but I will make it my thumbnail probably so you can see what I mean. My Galaxy S6, which has, I'm not even sure what DAC it has, but whatever DAC it has, plugged into this, plugged into my HD800. Now let that sink in. People travel, like I said, travel the world looking for amp combos, DAC combos for the HD800. Cell phone and this and the HD800 is a great portable listen, and the reason for that is because this and the cell phone, basically both the DAC and this together, they round off the top end quite a bit, but they still provide a lot of detail. So if I plug in my HD800, it's a lot better suddenly for casual listening, like pop music, which usually sounds too shrill coming out of my Gungner to my liquid carbon, would sound much better to my ears, much more easy to listen to, less harsh, less fatiguing on that pairing. So for that reason too, I think this is just a great purchase, because this is one of those, this is like a trump card, right? You're going to have this in your pocket when you're going through your audio journey, destiny, whatever, and you'll pull this out every now and then, and you'll be like, I wonder how it sounds with this. This may not be a desktop setup, may not be the most high-end setup, but just for curiosity's sake, I want to know how it sounds with the RunAbout Plus. Because in my experience, most times everything I've tried with this sounds just completely amazing. So would I recommend this? Definitely. If you have a Zen, if you have an Asura 2, do hit up Wildly for a nice discount. Otherwise, $98, not that bad in my opinion. $1 less than the Magni, and you're getting a lot for the price. So that has been my review of this long-awaited, for me at least, product. 2 months spent trying it out with all kinds of things, gathering my impressions, being continuously impressed actually. And now I sign off my review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.